Hey guys, in today's 2 minute devotion, we are going to tackle the subject of giving. I don't know about you, but I spent a lot of time in church growing up, different types of churches, and I've heard the scripture that I'm going to attempt to bring clarity to today. So I'm not sure that I've ever heard it in the way that I'm going to try to bring it out today. So hopefully this is helpful. And as always, we're going to look in scripture and see what the word has to say. So today's scripture is going to come from the book of Luke, specifically chapter 6, verses 37 and 38. And it says this: "Do not judge others, and you will not be judged. Do not condemn others, or it will all come back against you. Forgive others, and you will be forgiven. Give, and you will receive. Your gift will return to you in full, pressed down, shaken together to make room for more, running over and poured into your lap. The amount you give will determine the amount that you get back." Now, unfortunately, I was able to see in some churches that I've been in, this scripture was often quoted at offering time or when it was time to give financially. And many people would point to, many of the ministers would point to this scripture to encourage people to give the largest financial amount that they could give possible. And then say that, hey, see, God is promising via this scripture that if you give a lot of money, then he'll give you a lot of money in return. But what we see here is that context is extremely important. One of the things that I've been learning in my spiritual journey is that context is key. And so you can't just take one scripture, carry it out of the context of the other scriptures that it's in, and carry it to an extreme position. So what this scripture is talking about in context, in this whole scripture, Jesus is talking about a different way of thinking and doing things differently. So he's talking about things such as earlier in the chapter, loving your enemies, doing good to them, just basically things that are countercultural. But right here in verse 37, he says, listen, don't judge others or you'll be judged. Don't condemn others or it will come back against you. If you forgive, it'll be forgiven. Basically, Jesus is saying that you get what you give and you determine the way that people show up and the way that circumstances show up in your life, or you can have a determination toward that. So if you're overly judgmental, you're going to be judged harshly. If you're forgiving, very forgiven, then you're going to be forgiven. And so I wanted to point out that this particular scripture is not necessarily talking about money. And so because I care, I don't want you to be goaded or tricked into thinking that the Bible is saying if you give your stimulus to the church, then God will give that to you. I'm not saying that the scripture can't mean that. But what I am saying is that in this context, that is absolutely not what the scripture is talking about. It's not talking about anything monetary. It's talking about the way you conduct yourself. It's talking about the way that you show up in life. It's saying that, listen, be careful how you show up. Be careful what you put out, because as much as you put it out, listen, it's going to come back to you tenfold. So that's just an encouragement today to be careful how you show up and be mindful of how you show up in people's lives, how forgiving you are, how judgmental you are, how quick to speak you are, and how quick you are to write people off, or how nice you are to people, because in the manner that you put that out, it has a way of returning to you. Good measure, pressed down, shaken together to make room for more. In other words, you get it back twice as much. You get it back double what you give out. So be mindful of that today. And I hope you guys have a wonderful day.